It is an early start for Blender. It's an early start for me. Typically, Blender's on here 11 o'clock in the a.m. Typically, I'm on for GrindersLive later on in the day. I will be doing that, too. But we got the old split slate as Blender is rocking out here. 10:30, we're on for 70 minutes. We're going to yield to Crunch Time. Crunch Time coming on with Chief Mineralogist Kevin Roth. Dave Potts, Cheese is Good. Look at you composing over there.
No, I'm doing the drums. It's the drum. Ding, 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 you know, little brass over here. You know, it's grass cymbals, little crash. Ding, ding, ding.
Do you have any musical ability? I know you can scream into a microphone once upon a time, but can you play instruments?
I could play them like I just showed you right now. I could imitate it very well.
Don't know if that was playing them, but yeah, it reminded me for some reason in my head. It reminded me of that J.K. Simmons movie with the elite drummer, the prodigy drummer. I don't know why I can't think of the name of it. It's spectacular though. You know what I'm talking about?
No clue.
Oh gosh, Wonder. Somebody in chat will let me know. And I can't. Why can't? It's like one word. I think I'm pretty sure won some Oscars as well. It is spectacular. TJ, let me know in chat. You know what I'm talking about for sure. TJ is producing for us today. Do hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn those notifications. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a thinner crowd because it's an early morning. I'm sure people will be coming in, working their way in. But TJ said he was not listening. Well,
is it Whiplash, Dean?
Yes,
Whiplash?
Yes. It's spectacular. You've never seen or heard of Whiplash? That's a spectacular movie.
No.
You should see it tonight. I don't know what your plans are tonight. Clear your plans. Watch Whiplash and get back to me. Money back guaranteed if you don't like it. You sold?
Yeah, I'm waiting for my $0 rebate.
TJ's excited about Deadpool and Wolverine, which is tomorrow. No spoilers. No spoilers. You're going to want to stay off the interwebs for that one for sure. And there you go. Austin in chat is confirming Whiplash is incredible. It is a spectacular movie. All right. Split slate, like we said here, Blender. Weather-wise, by the way, speaking of weather, shout out to Roth. Roth had a really strong call on Atlanta yesterday. Did not help me. I did not have Tyler O'Neill in my main lineup. You probably should play one of the best power hitters in cores against one of the worst. That's just how it works out sometimes. But, yeah, he basically told us in so many words that you should not play Chris Sale, should not play Atlanta. I did not see where he ended up as far as ownership-wise. I would imagine it dipped a little bit because of the weather concerns. But,
in the 121, he was like 13% owned. So it's like, but then he was I think he was in the 20s in the mini-max. I finished third in the mini-max for the second straight day.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Same position again.
Was Devin still up there? I know Devin's been crushing as well.
Didn't see him on there in this one, but man, was it a close sweat once again. I just needed one more hit from Gavin Lux or literally any Oakland player.
Was Lux pinch hit for, or he was just making outs for you?
No, he did really well. Like he had like 12 points. It just like I finished like 2 points out of first.
All right. Shout out to TJ. I did not, but hey, that's DFS that we care about today and today only. Clean slate. We all started 0 once again. Weather today, I'll go ahead and drop this in chat as well. Nothing terribly concerning when it comes to weather as of right now. The Atlanta game 2, we don't really care about. Atlanta game 1, green, yellow. St. Louis, Pittsburgh, green, yellow. Milwaukee, Chicago, yellow, green. A lot of this slate, Blender, we're not going to have lineups, I don't think. We're kind of going in blind to some degree. It's 10:35 right now on the East Coast, and the slate starts at 12:20, and it extends to 3:40 starts. And there's multiple games that start 3 o'clock on the East Coast, so probably not going to have some lineups. We're going to be on top of this. You got to baby your lineups as the day progresses as well. Yeah, they were talking about this yesterday as far as FanDuel's rule. Sometimes they let you sort of swap out of pitchers that were canceled. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Boney in chat is telling us that for your information, FanDuel did let you swap off Sale once that game was officially postponed. Oh, that's not in their rules, is it?
It is. We talked about it on FanDuel, we talked about it on Crunch Time. I pulled up the rules. Anytime, even if a game gets delayed or even if a game just gets delayed, they're open to be swapped until the very first pitch.
Okay.
So if there is no first pitch, they're available to be swapped till the last game.
So everybody probably swapped the Gilbert on FanDuel, I assume. I would imagine that's probably what happened. Okay. K-Town's Finest says, thanks to RG. First and fourth in the $5 MLB, $12 knuckleball. There you go. Shout out to K-Town's Finest. That's impressive. Yeah, knuckleball. Yeah, that's a pretty big tournament. Congratulations. All right, some big scores yesterday. Let's keep that momentum going, Blender.
Also, 2 Spidey bombs hit yesterday.
Who were the Spidey bombs?
Gleyber Torres and shoot, I don't remember who the second one was.
But it hit, DJ. We're all telling it hit.
Yesterday, where I totally forgot that I was still on the screen until I looked up and noticed I forgot to remove myself. But it worked out yesterday because I did that yesterday as Bobby was like, no, I don't like Oakland. Let's put them near the bottom. And I went like that on the screen, forgetting I was still on it. So at least the timing worked out.
Brent Rooker, I keep talking about how good that guy's been this year, playing half his games in Oakland. He's still top 5 in basically every meaningful category in the American League. It's wild because he was DFA'd and traded multiple times, like 2022. Minnesota had him and they threw him away. I think Kansas City had him and they threw him away as well. And Oakland, that's like your last chance. Picked him up off the scrap heap, and he's turned himself into the best offensive player available during this, trade deadline. Is that fair to say? Blender, you don't care about such things. I'm asking you.
No, but I mean, I'm just I want to see what team will be on a week from now.
Yeah, Jazz is probably available too. He probably goes, but the way Rooker has been playing this year, he's just been awesome. And Oakland team's kind of come alive a little bit offensively. And again, it's tricky in that ballpark. We'll be talking about them later. Devin, I was with you too. I had a fair bit of Cubs. He said he had some Cubs on the today. It was 1-0 score. I think I had the organic game stack, which is always fun when it's 1-0. Did not work out for your boy, but we move on. I'll say the delay didn't help as far as the win, and Roth kind of warned us about that too. So if that game gets delayed, the win's gonna die down, and it won't look as good as it was looking. All right, no excuses though. No excuses. Oakland is on this slate. Are we going to have that lineup by the time lock hits? Possibly, probably not. We have some sprinkling in through here, Blender. Let's see, we got a few more as the show is opened up. That's pretty good.
And I think Cincinnati, during this show, we're only going to have the Cincy, Atlanta, St. Louis, Pittsburgh games. I mean, crunch time. Maybe Philadelphia, Minnesota.
We got Philly.
You are not going to have the lineups until whatever.
We got Philly, Blender. Schwarber, Turner, Harper, Bohm, Marsh, Castellanos, Stott, Stubbs, Rojas. So is that no real Muto? That's no real Muto, right? Yeah, Stubbs is in there.
Okay.
Yeah, day game after a night.
Day game after night game. Yeah, I get it.
Sometimes you DH the catcher, but that will happen a fair bit. Boston, let's see who we're giving Reese McGuire the start, which makes sense. Wong probably sits. Also, Boston is facing a righty for the first time in this series. We'll talk stacks. We'll talk hitters later on in the show. I want an overview before we talk about pitchers, Blender. How are you seeing this slate? Boston very, very clearly the top team on the board, locked in for 9 at Coors, a team total of 6. I don't think anybody else has a team total above 5. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Some are close. But, yeah, nobody else has a team total above 5. So, obviously they play the games. It's baseball. There's heavy variance, but Boston is the team most likely to score the most runs. But, of course, the field would beat Boston, but we don't most likely. We just don't know which team amongst the field would do that. What are you seeing? And also pitching-wise, and we'll touch on it in a second. And I think Dave did a really good job in the article and kind of had my thoughts right on paper. There's 5 good pitchers. There's 5 really good pitchers, and I don't really have one that's clearly the best. Pavetta's the biggest K guy, but he's in Coors, but he also gets to face Colorado, who's terrible. Interesting conversation as far as pitchers. Some haves and have-nots. I think it's pretty clear, like who you want, who you don't want. Of course, salary is the thing too, and maybe the Griffin Canning thing is wild because he's terrible, but the Mariners might be worse. especially with the absence of Crawford now and the absence of J-Rod on the IL. There are some creative players on this team, Blender. No official lineup for Seattle, but spoiler alert, it's not going to be good. Cade Marlowe, Jason Fossler, Tyler Locklear.
Those aren't real
Heatherston?
people, Dean. Come on. Stop scamming the people out there with just making up the names. I mean, you just went to like Baseball Stars, old school Nintendo style, and just pulled out the bases loaded. Oko from the Philadelphia team is going to come because he's the one that if you hit him, he charges the mound. So that's the only reason.
I don't remember that. I was an RBI baseball guy. I didn't play Baseball Stars.
There was Baseball Stars, RBI baseball, and then also Bases Loaded. And Bases Loaded, they had obviously the real cities, but the fake teams or whatever. But there was one guy on Philly, the power hitter Oko on Philly, that if you beamed him, he charged the mound.
Why? What a great! I didn't know that was a thing, but what an interesting thing to build into the game. But he's the one guy that he wouldn't deal with. Didn't deal well with.
Maybe there were other people, but I knew that definitely him because if you threw at him and hit him, he got ejected from the game. So anytime
I don't know if
played against, I would just he let him get ejected. Yeah, your best hitter's gone. Bye. I
don't know if it was Baseball Stars, but one of the games is famous for having like a cheat code hitter, and I can't remember which game that was. That it's like a made up player, but he was spectacular. Like he was just like the best hitter in the game. Maybe somebody on chat will remind us, or maybe you're not aware of it. I don't know. But all right, Blender, how are you seeing this slate? Pretty clear as far as the best pitchers, pretty clear as far as the best offense, but variance, yada yada yada. What do you got for me?
I mean, that's exactly what I see. I mean, to me, I actually think they may be more pitching combinations that I may want to go. I think that the difference between the pitchers is smaller in the little group versus the hitters. But I mean, like at least half the stacks on today's slate, this early slate, I don't want to play at all. I mean, I have like no interest in for any reason. And then there's only like 5 pitchers that I want to play, but what 2 out of the 5? It could be any of them. And then they're all different price points. So like when we get this, I expect the Atlanta Braves to be over-owned today because of Nacho Alvarez. So like I would avoid like a Boston Red Sox stack, Boston plus Atlanta plus like Castillo Steele lineups, something like that. I mean, I think Griffin Cannon will be the owned like cheap nonsense. But I don't know how owned he's going to be. So like if you want to spend up for stacks, I think Griffin Canning is your guy. But there's like a group of pitchers that I want to play, but everyone else is like, no, thank you.
So the group, I don't want to be presumptuous. Let's go ahead and throw it out there. I'm guessing you want to play 2 of Luis Castillo, Pivetta, Justin Steele, Aaron Nola, Hunter Brown. Is that fair to say?
And then Griffin Canning being like the cheap nonsense guy to play also. But I mean,
is he good? Is he good?
Rank these guys. I think Castillo is number 1. I mean, he projects in the bat like 2 points higher than Nola, and 3 points higher than Steele, and 4 points higher than Brown, and 6 points higher than Pivetta. Because obviously Pivetta's pitching in Colorado. So I'm fine with Castillo against the Angels, who, I mean, they're not a great hitting team at all. But it's like, to me, it's like Castillo and then like Steele, Nola, Brown, Pivetta. I'm fine with playing any of these. I'm fine with taking a shot in Pivetta at 8,300, even in Colorado, because he could give up 4 runs and still strike out 9. So like I have no problem. Nola's strikeout stuff has been up compared to earlier in the year. So I don't mind, $10K against Minnesota if I could spend it, and Steele against Milwaukee. I mean, if you look at like the pitching props, they're all about the same. Like between like Castillo, Steele, Nola, Brown, Pivetta, they're all in that like 5.5 to 6.5 type of range. And And for cheap nonsense, you have, Griffin Canning is the only one of the other pitchers that has like at least a 5.5 strikeout prop. So, I mean, it's kind of a line. It's in line with the betting lines. But which one am I willing to play more than others? I think Castillo is going to be the most owned. But, I mean, what's going to be that much of it? Maybe Castillo is 35 to 38% owned, and all the other guys are like somewhere between 20 and 30 or 33. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there's like pitching on this slate is the type of thing where, like, well, I'm going to get really different by playing this guy. But I also don't think that anyone is going to be owned enough where, while you can't play these two pitchers together and the Red Sox, I think there's enough pitching, two-man pitching combinations that, like, I'm much more willing to, like, play 1-2 stacks that I really want to play and then just say, what two pitchers fit in this spot and play 3 of those lineups and switch the pitchers out more so than the stacks.
Yeah, ownership-wise, we have Castillo is the most popular at 39%, Pivetta at 28%. Interesting is because it's cores, but well, you kind of laid out one of the reasons why he'll be popular. Justin Steele third, probably my favorite is Justin Steele. Good pitching environment. He's been pretty awesome. It's kind of a rocky start to his. We've talked about it. Every start's been kind of goofy for different reasons, rain and injuries. Nola 25% as far as ownership, Brown 21%. So the 5 pitchers are those going to be the 5 most popular. And then the cheapie is Canning at 19%. I feel like he might be higher. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like he might be higher than that just because he's so cheap and Seattle's so bad. Also, Canning, not very good either. Just kind of looking at the slate as a whole, interesting with Pivetta, highest K rate, 29.4%, highest fly ball percentage as well in cores, but also the lowest Sierra at 3.25, which backs up and very much supports that he's been even a little bit unlucky with this 3.87 ERA. Highest Sierra, I'm not going to count Alan Williams at like his 5 innings throwing baseballs for Atlanta, but the highest Sierra is Griffin Canning at 4.92. The Ks are less than 16%, not very stellar. It's just I think Pivetta, Poole, hold on, Steele, Poole, who's Poole? And Steele, I don't know. I'm just making up people. Who am I thinking
is he on the Mariners? Is he on the Mariners? If he's on it's possible he's on the Mariners.
It might be a person named Poole. Who am I thinking of?
I was debating. I'm happy you made the Mariners joke because I was debating either going making a Mariners joke because like a creative player. Is this somebody from the old Nintendo games that they made up and threw in there?
Is there a person named like Justin Poole? And that's where my mind was going.
Jordan Poole on the Washington Wizards.
That's probably where my brain was doing. Yeah, I think that's what was happening. Justin,
well, if he's pitching today, I want to play the team against him.
Well, if his baseballs are as accurate as his shots, I hope he doesn't hit that guy in Baseball Stars because he might be charging the mound. It could turn ugly. Hunter Brown's pretty awesome. He's another guy that's kind of turned his season around. Great ballpark in Oakland. Are we at the point where we're kind of I don't want to say afraid of Oakland, but we should start respecting Oakland at least. Put some respect in that name, the Sacramento Athletics, whatever they're going to be calling them next year. Probably the Oakland Athletics, I'm guessing. But they're not as the pushover they once were. And even when they weren't good, they were still hitting homers. Again, I'm kind of being a little bit facetious, but I don't really want to pick on Oakland's not the push. It's not like you're facing the White Sox or the Marlins or Seattle.
Yeah, but still, it's Hunter Brown, and Oakland's one of the best pitching parks.
Yeah,
I think Hunter Brown is. That's why, like every one of these pitchers has a ding against them. There's no perfect pitchers in baseball anymore. So, like, if you wanted to play Hunter Brown instead of Justin Steele, who am I to judge you for it? It's like it's still a fine matchup, right? For strikeouts and run prevention.
Paul Skeens can't be a perfect pitcher because he's never on the main slate.
But have you seen his mustache? He's bringing the mustache back. I don't know if you guys know this. The mustache is on its way back. It's and Paul Skeens is leading the way. Anyways, all right. So the nonsense, it's Canning and nobody, right? I mean, Martin
do you
Perez,
consider Frankie Montas at 8K to be nonsense? I don't think he's cheap enough.
He's in the middle. He's kind of a middle.
He's in the middle. If you wanted to play Frankie Montas today at 8K, I don't think you're nuts. If you needed the salary from it's like, well, I can't get Justin Steele in, but I could get Frankie Montas. I think it's more important to make sure you have 2 decent pitchers than get your perfect stacks in. There's enough cheap people and some value bats that, that if you're building, you have your 5-man, you could, switch out a cheaper hitter or, go 5-2-1 and have one guy be a cheap hitter. The only thing that I would say is that I wouldn't be in the business of playing Nacho Alvarez as a one-off, especially like if you're playing that in like a Boston lineup, like Boston, Alvarez, Castillo, Steele, like those types of lineups. Those would be very. I mean, from a median projection standpoint, that would be good. That would be very good. It's just that the combinations are going to be very, duplicated, right? That you may have a unique lineup, but if everything goes well, you'll go, I can't believe I scored 210 and came in like 23rd place. And you're like, what do I have to do to win these things? It's like, well, not play everyone that's over 20% off.
Can I just counter and say maybe you can play him because second base is so terrible, and it's a way to get away from second base as a punt. It's a cheap spot, and there are some good hitters, I guess, at second, but it's kind of a wasteland now. We lost Albies as well. That's why we have Ignacio Alvarez, Jonathan India, Ignacio, Nacho Alvarez, Nick Gonzalez actually batting cleanup today versus Liberatore for Pittsburgh.
But I've heard of these people, Dean. I've heard of these people.
You've heard of them. That's just
right. I mean, for the Mariners, we got. I guess Dylan Moore is playing. I've heard.
You've heard of Jorge Polanco.
Jorge Polanco. Of all the people, Seattle has people that half the people I've never heard of, and they still have 2 eligible second basemen, and it looks like no shortstop. So good luck. I was like, maybe I'll stack the Mariners, the creative players today against Griffin Canning. They even at Locklear and Raley are both first base eligible. It's like, geez, they don't even make it easy on you to even stack the creative players.
And sometimes they play their 2 catchers, and it's hard. You can't get both those guys in, obviously, in the Big Dumper and Garver. But second is just kind of a wasteland. Hamilton probably, he should jump in the lineup today with Boston facing a righty. We're projecting him to bat second. Altuve, of course, historically has smashed lefties. You got to pay for it. And he's interesting, big spend to be a little bit different. But overall, the position's, pretty weak. Julien is back for Minnesota, but, buried in the 9-hole today. Some pinch hit risk as well when a lefty comes in. If a lefty comes in, he's a guy that can only get 2 at-bats to the 9-hole if we see a lefty. Probably not, because Nola sticks around for a while and probably sees him 3 times. But even then, we're not excited about that. The other rookie, Brooks Lee, also. But, yeah, overall, second base is just kind of a wasteland. And I'm okay with. I saw Don Yeezy asking about Montas. He'd probably be like my 6th or 7th guy, right? Just kind of in the middle in his own little tier. But, Joe Ross coming back from injury, no chance. Liberatore, no chance. He doesn't really go very deep. We're expecting, 73 pitches on average, and he's also not very good. Minnesota with Okert opening. Coming behind him is expected to be what's the dude's name? David Festiva. Yeah, big fan of Festivus. Get your Festivus jokes in. But yeah, not much else. It's very clear. Cal Quantrill, I can't imagine. I don't run 150. Even if I was running 150, I wouldn't get there. And that's why it's really concise as far as the pitching pool today.
Right. You're not playing Martin Perez. I
don't think so.
You take that clip of me saying you're not playing Martin Perez and insert into any previous Grinders Live for the past 7 years. So there's no reason not to. Maybe on a 3-game slate where there's 4 teams with openers and you have to play Martin Perez, but outside of that, you're never playing Martin Perez.
No, even if he's good. Air quotes good, he's just he's the BABIP's working in his favor. He's got 2 strikeouts and he goes 6 clean. What is his ceiling? 17% strikeout rate on the season. He's an inning eater. He's tough to stack against sometimes, Historically, a really good ground ball guy. Can be kind of frustrating, but yeah, just basically never roster him. We do have a Spidey in the bullpen, by the way. It's not just David Festa in the bullpen today. Spidey is hanging out. If we hit a certain threshold, I'm not sure if TJ has told the people just yet, but we have to get a certain threshold of likes, and Spidey will unleash the Spidey bombs. Blender will also go to the bat and tell you who's projected the highest to hit a homer today.
No. Dean, I've changed that to giving you actual player props.
Something actionable.
Right, something actionable, not just like who's the most likely to hit a home run, and if his price is minus 480 on a book that you should take it at that point. Of course not. No, I could throw in, but of course they're not my takes or anything. It's the bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're just regurgitating.
But that's how Dean. That's how we make money. I mean, come on.
I'm not frowning on it. To be clear, I wasn't doing that to be. I was not knocking it. It's a living. I respect it. Speaking of, did you have any? Well, a lot of the stuff you probably are in for already. It's changed the numbers. Any takes out there as far as player props? You're heavy on
for
anything that's gonna jump out for you?
So we're talking
any
about
player prop, outs, whatever.
Oh, I know you can't spring this up on me. Just on today's slate, I'll have to look to see what I got in.
Do you not have a whole bunch of usually you have like 50 bets at this point?
Yeah, but not when I do shows this early in the morning and these types of things. A lot of times,
I got you.
A lot of times I don't get them in. I'll get the hitter stuff in, once lineups start coming out. But yeah, this was really early, right? We got the extra half an hour that screws me up. That screws up my entire schedule, Dean. The extra half, I'm usually up at 11 in the morning, so I have an extra half an hour to get stuff in and get up early. And you know my rule, Dean. There are some days, like I just say, you don't have to play DFS every day. You don't have to bet on player props every day. You don't have to go on Prize Picks and Underdog and pick. You can take a day off or have less volume or whatever. My rule when it comes to props is that if you're not up before Cardi, don't even bother with pitcher props.
The
right?
lines
You're not
already
up
moved.
Cardi, right? Because the numbers will move. So what
time is Cardi getting up? Just so I know.
Typically around 9:30. So if you got to get up either the overnights, which not all of them are posted, right? So you could get something in before you go to sleep, right? And then in the morning you want to get it. You want to be there at 8, somewhere between 8 and 9, and then hammer all the pitching stuff. Then Cardi wakes up, right? All the numbers move. And then you get your hitter stuff, later in the day when you get confirmed lineups. That's typically the workflow of that. So I woke up because this show was early, whatever, and just okay. So I got up at 10. So it's I wake up and what do I first thought in my mind? Oh, I'm up after Cardi, so I guess I'm not going to look at.
I gotta pee is the first thing I thought.
Right, yeah, well, of course, but if I'm not up before Cardi, I always want to have the best numbers. Sometimes there'll be still value on the board, but nowhere near as much value as there would have been, an hour before that, an hour and a half before that, or overnight.
We have lineups for the first 3 games, like we mentioned: Cincinnati, Atlanta, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Minnesota. Then we probably won't get it. Maybe Crunch Time will get them. As far as Milwaukee, Chicago, Boston, Colorado, Houston, Oakland, the Angels, and the Mariners, if you so dare to roster any hitters in that game. Got confirmation Spidey will pop in with Spidey Bombs every 50 likes. So hit that like button, do subscribe, do turn on those notifications. And there you go. Comic-Con is starting this week out there in San Diego. I just remember when I was doing a baseball road trip and we were taking an Uber or a taxi or whatever. And this guy sized up me and my friends. He's like, "Oh, you guys are going to Comic-Con?" No, we're going to base. What are you trying to? I don't like a Comic-Con guy. I don't know what you. We weren't insulted,
Dean,
but
you have total Comic-Con vibes. Total.
I give up Comic-Con vibes.
Yeah.
There's probably nowhere on earth you will see a more diverse looking group of people than a Comic-Con. So everybody looks like a Comic-Con guy because there's people of all shapes, sizes, cultures. It's about as wide of a range as you'll ever find.
You ever been to the San Diego Comic-Con, TJ? That's probably the mecca for you. I'm sure I know you've been to several, obviously, but not or maybe the San Diego version.
Have not been to San Diego. No, just haven't been able to make the trip work. I'm going to New York Comic Con for my second time this year, though.
There you go. For work, not pleasure, I assume. Or I guess both. I suppose both. All right, Blender. How about yourself? I can see Blender being a comic. No.
No, but I mean, I'm in related territories. I mean, like I'm into pro wrestling, right? And that's
There's a Venn diagram.
Right, there's a Venn diagram of it. That's that type of world building, fictional universes and stuff like that. So it's like a lot of people that are into pro wrestling are also into like science fiction or into comic books or into every, it all goes, board games, things like that. It's just that sometimes you're just not into all of it. So like to me, I never really got into comic books and moved like that type like, yeah, I watched Star Trek, but I wasn't like, like some sci-fi. I'm going to a sci-fi convention. And I'm dressed up as like a Vulcan. Like I was never that. Right. But I get it. The thing is that I get it. It's just like, when you talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, it's the same thing as me talking about Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Or whatever. It's the same thing.
All right. All right. Anything else as far as pitching? Did you want to stress your favorite two? You said 2 of the 5. You want to?
I don't want to stress. I mean, my take is that there's nothing to stress. All I know is that if you're going to play Griffin Canning, be aware what you're getting into. So, like, yes, he's 5,700. He's facing the creative players of Seattle. He has a 5.5 strikeout prop, which is a great number for that price. But
except he's not a strikeout pitcher is the problem. But yeah, I was staring at that one too.
Seattle has such a strike. That lineup is ridiculous. Understand that Canning could go 2 1/3 innings, giving up 3 home runs, walking 3, and giving up 8. I mean, like that's well within his range of outcomes, regardless if they're creative players. So let the buyer beware. I think his ownership ends up getting possibly up to even 30%.
I think it gets higher. I think it goes higher as well.
Right, yeah. There's going to be some point of diminishing returns. It's just that, like, all the other cheap nonsense is, like, nonsense. Like, it's just, I'm just not going to play. So it just comes down to, can you find cheaper value bats in order to play the stacks that you want? If you want to play that game, fine. But if you don't, just plug in Griffin Canning and you pray to the DFS gods.
So a couple of guys in the projected Seattle lineup, like Vossler, has got 0 at bats versus a righty, so his K percentage is 0. But you look at his minor league stuff, or I guess more accurately or better, I think a better tool would be looking at the bat X, where projects him to strike out in the majors, 27.8%. So he looks like a guy that's going to strike out a fair bit. And again, it doesn't show that on Plate IQ because he's got 0 at bats, so you just don't know.
Right. What do you have for Heather Locklear?
Heather Locklear, I believe, is out of the league. I'm fairly certain. But I do want to say, I know you, that she might be old enough to be his mom.
Maybe Tyler Locklear is her son. Maybe that could be true.
And he was only a child at Merrill's place. Season 7, right. He was conceived.
Well, I mean, you take a look at Cade Marlowe. Cade Marlowe sounds like the name of someone on a soap opera or a show like Melrose Place.
It sounds like a wrestler, like a developmental wrestler name.
Right. It's NXT. It's a fake name from Tuesday's NXT. That's like Cade Marlowe. What kind of name is that? That's obviously computer generated. We're not.
Who holds a child up? Who looks up a child and said, "You know what I'm gonna name this thing? Cade Marlowe." I've never had the responsibility to do that before. I don't want that. That's too much responsibility for me. But it's a spectacular name. I'm sure everybody's happy all around. But there are other options. So you mentioned Cade Marlowe, and the bat has him projected to strike out. You ready for this one? 34.6% in the majors is his projection going forward as far as striking out. So, yeah, that's how old do we think Heather Locklear is? By the way, Blender, you want to? I'll set an over under. And also, okay. Bonus question. Does TJ know who Heather Locklear is?
I think TJ definitely does know who Heather Locklear is. And I'm gonna assume Heather Locklear currently is at least 57 years old.
You set the number, and I'll go over under. Ooh, 57 is a good number. That's a strong
57.5.
Oh, you dropped the hook. When you dropped the hook out of nowhere, the line just moved.
No pushes at the Blender Sportsbook.
I was gonna go over until you dropped the hook. Now I don't know. Man. I think it's still barely over. I think she's barely over.
Yeah. It wasn't that great of a line. She's 62.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yes, of course I know who Heather Locklear is. Reminder once again, I run a TV and movie website.
What is she doing?
Whoa, TJ, come back here.
Now?
Yeah, what, TJ? How is she relevant though? Like, when's the last time that she actually did something?
I'm firing up the IMDb page. She has not been in anything since like 2021. Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, the Kristen Carlson story. In 20 and then 2017.
You know what, Dean? I'm gonna watch that before Whiplash.
She made an appearance in Fresh Off the Boat in 2017. She was in 10 episodes of Franklin and Bash in 2013. That was on TNT, I think, before and after I watched basketball. I was like, what? Franklin and Bash? What is this nonsense? And she was in Scary Movie 5 in 2013. So there you go. She's done a few things, but it's been a while. But she had a good run. She was married to one of the Sambora, somebody from Bon Jovi, right?
And also Tommy Lee.
Yeah, I guess I buried the lead on that one. All right. We got sidetracked. Anything else as far as pitchers? We have crunch time coming in about 35 minutes or so. You got Dave Potts. You got Kevin Roth. You got Squirrel Patrol as well. We do not have a lot of lineups, but we'll do the best when we knock out these stacks. You kind of let the cat out of the bag as far as like not being terribly interested in a fair bit of these teams, but we'll discuss game by game momentarily. Blender, and actually, let me bring in TJ. I'm assuming TJ's playing this slate. TJ, you have any thoughts as far as pitching wise before we move on?
I'm fully fading Aaron Nola. I have 0%. And that's basically about it. I'm just spreading out everywhere else. My highest owned is Justin Steele. He's my favorite on the slate. And then I'm going to be taking shots on a lot of the cheap low-owned guys like JP Sears, Joe Ross, Alan Winans, Frankie Montas, guys like that.
Blender was making faces. I don't know if you saw Blender was.
I have no problem with wine. I have no problem with Winans, right? Like Winans is fine, and like even JP Sears, like okay.
Sears is my favorite of the group.
Like Joe Ross, I just don't. I mean, there's a good shot that Joe Ross comes in and throws 60 pitches. Like their bat has his like median projection pitch count at like 83, but I mean, there's a good portion of the time that he just pitches 4 innings no matter what his pitch count is, even if it's like 50. So like I had those types of people for GPPs at least.
Oh yeah, he only got up to 46 in his rehab start. So no, that's nice.
There you go. So
why is he projected for so many?
He had 3 rehab starts, I believe. I don't know. Like even when he's gonna throw 75 or 80 pitches, he's not very good. Not a lot of strikeouts.
Well, just like wind's blowing in, so it's like it's a really good pitching environment. Yeah. But I don't know why in both sets of projections he's projected for in the 80s when he got over 40. He got 47 pitches his last time.
Maybe that'll be adjusted. That does seem too high. I think that's. I
mean, Joe Ross's player props are not even on the board at most sportsbooks. So, like, to me, that's always the sign of, they're scared of putting up a number because they're not even sure what the pitch count is going to be. And like, it would be much different if Joe Ross had like a 4.5 strikeout prop. I'd be like, okay, maybe he is going to pitch 80, 85 today. But the fact that there's no number on the board, I mean, in DFS, we don't care about over under. We care about like ceilings in GPP, and like he's 7,300. Like he's not even that big of a strikeout pitcher. So like, let's say he gets 3 strikeouts in 4 innings. Like he's not even qualified for the win. He gets what? Like he gives up 1 earned run. It's not a bad outing, and he ends up with like 9 points. So like, I can't play that. I'll take a shot on high owned Griffin Canning before doing that because at least there's somewhat of a ceiling there.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with anything you said. I was just looking at projections and threw stuff together quickly during the show, so that makes complete sense. I got him out of there now.
Scary Creation says any Pavetta love. Yeah, we talked about Pavetta pretty glowingly. About as glowingly you could talk about a pitcher throwing baseballs in Coors. Biggest K rate on the slate, lowest Sierra on the slate. Does have a fly ball issue, which could be concerning in Colorado, but as far as upside, I think he can strike out more than anybody in this slate. I think my favorite guy is Steele. I want to see how ownership stuff shakes out, but I'm pretty sure that's my favorite pitcher. But if I get two of Pavetta, Brown, Nola, Steele, Castillo, I think I'm happy, and we'll go from there. But I guess it's time for stacks. You kind of you teased this on before the show to me. You made the board. Do you want to go ahead and tell the people, Blender? Well, first, just tell them the topic, and let's see how quickly their mind jumps to the board. Okay,
so this is only this tier board, the top, the whatever the names are, or for if you're under the age of 35, you may not know anything of what we're doing. You may it's like talking about the telegraph or something. It's like talking the phonograph, putting on
shout out Edison,
right, or something like that. It's going to sound like this. But I did the tiers. I ranked the early online services for internet quote unquote internet providers. So these are all services that you had to physically dial a modem had to dial a landline phone and go, dude, will make all those noises and connect at depending on how early you were, 300 to 2400 BPS. And some had graphical interfaces. These are mostly graphical interface ones. So I ranked them from best to worst. I could really only come up with 5. So I just ranked the 5.
AOL Prodigy, DJ and Stoner mentioned, Net Zero, I'm pretty sure was the one that we had.
Net Zero was an ISP. They were not an online service, just like Earthlink was an ISP. These are not ISPs. These are online services. Right.
AOL was number 1 according to your board. Number 2 is, I have to make this screen bigger. Delphi. I don't know if I'm aware of Delphi. What is Delphi? Was that Al Gore's company? What is Delphi?
Okay, so I'll go through simply. Okay. Number 1 in the top tier is America Online. Nothing ever came close. Because once they integrated the actual internet access to the platform where you could open up a web browser while in AOL, you have access to everything now. Because most of these started as closed services where just you're inside their little bubble. So America Online, obviously, number 1, the most amount of people, all these things on the internet win when the most amount of people are there, just like, Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. So America Online, their chat rooms, their everything, and
ASL question mark?
Use what?
ASL question mark?
Yeah, ASL question mark. Yep. And also, you download the pirated software. You can do all that type of stuff, right? Then Delphi, little unknown, right? But they were an online service. They were the first ones to offer the actual internet access. So Telnet, Usenet, you could use,
I think I had Telnet.
Right. So if you were into BBSs, which I was when I was a kid, you could use Delphi to Telnet into BBSs that were outside of your area because I didn't have to make a long distance call to California or something like that to get on a BBS. I could just sign up for Delphi and then be able to use it. So if you were a nerd, right, computer nerd, BBS nerd, Delphi was great when it was around, right? Then you had CompuServe, and CompuServe was like the worst version of America Online, and your email address was always like 89712.3. I mean, dude, you can't just give me a regular name. No, it's all numbers and dots at CompuServe, and eventually no one was there. And then Genie was owned by General Electric, and they were only text-based. So it was very much like a BBS, really old school BBS, but it was a closed system. So like if you talk to anyone on Genie, like they had to be on like it was like they had forums and stuff like that, but you couldn't telnet out, you couldn't get Usenet, you couldn't get any of that type of stuff. So I put them in the 4th tier. And the worst by far is Prodigy. Prodigy was bloated software, slow. They tried to be all pretty with graphics, but it was a closed system. They never incorporated like actual internet access. So you're stuck, downloading, especially when you're at like 2400 baud. Like screens would load like it takes forever, and then you get there, and the only people you could talk to are people that are also on Prodigy that they barely know what they're doing also. So Prodigy, although may have looked the best on paper visually, to actually use the service and interact with people was the nut low.
All right. William says, AOL, my rich cousins had that. Well, they gave it to you for free in the mail. Like if you had to get the desk and like they would give
only
you like
certain hours. Only
right?
Yeah,
a couple hundred hours, whatever it was. I don't remember what the number was, but yeah. And then they get you hooked, and then they take it away, and I think at some point you have to pay for it. I assume at some point you have to pay for it, but all right.
Right, people under the age of 35, Dean, are like, you mean people were using the internet and paying by the hour? Like, yeah, that's the way it was.
And you had to get off the house phone too, which is a whole other conversation. You got to get off the landline.
I had a second phone line, Dean. I was special.
Ooh,
my parents.
How rich were you?
Yeah,
privileged. All right, Cincinnati, Atlanta, 8.5 is the first game. Alan Winans taking on Frankie Montas. We know this Atlanta lineup is rough. One more injury with Ozzy Albies to add to the whole batch. Still DK for like the 3rd or 4th day in a row. Ignacio Nacho Alvarez is 2K and batting second for the Braves. Nice ballpark historically to hit baseballs. Where do you have the Reds and the Braves as far as your stacks today, Blender?
I have them right in the middle. I mean, the Reds are okay. The Reds, they're in CompuServe. They're hanging out. I'm not scared of Alan Winans, but like I said before, I think Alan Winans you're not crazy for playing him as a pitcher. I just think that the Cincinnati Reds are a little too expensive compared to some other stacks in this range that I'd rather play. And the Atlanta Braves, I think, are going to be vastly overowned today. Based on their point per dollar price, I would put them, on Delphi, but because of ownership, they're hanging out on. The Atlanta Braves are getting their numbered email address, and hanging out in the mid tier. I just think playing like a Nacho Alvarez Atlanta stack type of, I'd rather play Frankie Montas today than go into that ownership. I think if you use an optimizer like Lineup HQ or whatever, like it's going to start spitting out these Nacho Alvarez second base lineups. And alongside, if you're stacking, a lot of these Braves are going to come with it. So I think the field is going to end up doing that either on purpose or not on purpose because they don't realize it. So I'm not saying the Braves are bad. I don't mind the Braves because it's a way that you don't even have to play Griffin Canning. I just think they're going to be much more owned than they should be on this slate.
I could be wrong, but I feel like I don't think Atlanta's going to be as popular as you're suggesting. But you're suggesting, okay, I have Alvarez, so I might as well build a stack around it. Is what people are going to be doing.
Right.
Okay. It's interesting. I just ran some optimal stuff, and I didn't add any sort of like qualifiers of they must be stacks. And the most popular hitters, 5 of the most popular hitters are Cardinals, which is pretty surprising. Carlson, Contreras, Wynn, Goldie, Arenado. That is peculiar. But
the just to be clear, the RotoGrinders projections for the Cardinals are much higher than the Bats projection. The Cardinals still project well. But the RotoGrinders projections for the Cardinals are, for that game in general, for the Cardinals-Pirates game, is actually a bit higher than the Bat. I like that game, to be clear. I think we're getting to this next. But yeah, these projections are a little high compared to the Bat.
So Vegas is kind of telling us, they're sending out the alarm. 9.5 total for a game in Pittsburgh doesn't seem to happen very often. That's what we have, a 9.5 total. The Pirates and the Cardinals, Liberatore versus Martin Perez it's a true coin toss. They're both minus 110, 4.75 as far as the team total. So that is interesting. I don't know if that means I should be loading up on Cardinals, but you talk about not playing Martin Perez for so many years. My success rate as far as stacking against them just never seems to get there. They do okay, but never quite seem to fully pummel him. Again, historically, a better ground ball rate. The ground ball rate's still kind of there, but not what it used to be. Where do you have St. Louis and Pittsburgh?
Well, I think St. Louis is still going to be a little overowned, but I mean, I put St. Louis against Martin Perez. I mean, am I enthralled with the stack? No, but I mean, I'm not enthralled with much stuff outside of. I mean, we'll get to the games that have actual totals. So I mean, they're going to be.
Well, this one has an actual total 9.5 blender.
Yeah. Yes. But I didn't. It's a fake.
That's
total.
the peculiar thing.
Yeah, that's right. That is the peculiar thing. But me personally, I prefer to play the Pirates compared to the Cardinals because I think from a ceiling perspective, I think they're both about the same, and the Pirates are going to be lower owned and facing Liberator, and I'm also not scared to play O'Neal Cruz lefty against Liberator. Because I only think he probably sees him for one at bat. Because I think Liberator gets.
I think two. He's kind of terrible.
He may be out in 2 innings. I mean, you never know. But yeah, I think more people will play the Cardinals than the Pirates. So like if you want to switch these around based on ownership, that's fine. But like, I think I prefer this game over any other game outside of Coors. So that's I'm putting them. You know, Pirates get the CD in the mail for their 10 free hours, and the Cardinals are hanging out on Usenet using Delphi.
By the way, Christian Yelich was just thrown on the DL, so that's gonna weaken Milwaukee's lineup.
Well, Justin Steele, lock him in.
Yeah. I mean, that was left on left anyway, but whoever they replace him with is not going to be as good as Yelich. So that's interesting. Is it his back? It's got to be his back, right? Yeah, it's always his back. That's a bummer. Okay, moving on. Philadelphia, Minnesota. We have Aaron Nola, pretty big favorite, minus 145, taking on the combination of Steven Okert and Festa is the presumed long man behind him. Philadelphia does have a total of 4.3. Minnesota under 4. Tough matchup here against Nola. Where do you have the Phillies and the Twins?
Okay, well, the Twins lineup has gotten cheaper. Right, because some of their expensive guys are not as expensive anymore or not in the lineup. But I mean, they have a 3.7 total against Aaron Nola. I mean, even at $4,500 Byron Buxton is just like I mean, they're not the worst. I mean, like truthfully, the Twins in the bat are not there's still multiple other teams that have a higher projection. But they're not. But they're cheaper at least. I'm gonna put the Twins in the Genie tier, but under the notion that to me they're a prodigy team. So like, I don't think you're nuts for playing the Twins against Nola, but I won't be playing the Twins. It's like
I won't either.
They get just out of am I nuts territory. So I got to put the Twins in the 4th tier. And the Phillies, they're an expensive stack that I would actually be willing to play against the president of Festivus coming in after Okert. So I think they're going to be a little under-owned, the Phillies, based on their pricing compared to obviously the Red Sox and obviously the Cardinals mix in or something like that. So I'm going to put the Phillies. I'm going to put they're the 2 Ps in America Online. If you're going to spend up for a stack that isn't the Red Sox, I think the Phillies will be a slightly underowned for their ceiling.
By the way, first Spidey Bomb did drop. TJ dropped it in chat. That's Jared Kelnick. If you want another one, hit that like button. Also, you can subscribe while you're here. So you know when we go live. You would have known that Blender was coming on today at 10:30 in the morning as opposed to when he typically comes on 11 a.m. By the way, righty coming in after Okert. Okert probably only goes a couple innings or so. Not that you're scared of playing Schwarber or Harper against Okert, but just he will have the platoon advantage, assuming that it's Festa coming in afterwards. Joe Ross taking on Justin Steele, 7.5 total. It is a positive pitching environment. Do want to confirm that as far as checking out the old weather edge. But 4 total for Chicago against Ross returning from the IL. Steele has been really, really solid. We just heard that the Yelich is on the IL, so he won't be playing baseball today. Significantly hurts that lineup. Where do you have the Brewers and the Cubbies?
Well, I mean, I had the Brewers at the bottom before Yelich was ruled out, so that ain't gonna. Of course, the stack.
What's worse than Prodigy?
Yes, much worse than Prodigy.
Yeah.
I mean, the stack gets cheaper now, but from a ceiling perspective, nope, they're hanging out on Prodigy. Much rather play Justin Steele, even because also Justin Steele's not going to be like, if he's 32% owned, that's not an absurd amount. That, yeah, can he fail but the Brewers not be the highest stack? Yeah, that could happen.
Do you think the Yelich news can move that needle a little bit as far as ownership? Because kind of like we're at, we're all sort of wishy-washy amongst those 5, and that might be enough.
Steele's going to get a bump, but I don't think it's going to be.
I think so too.
Now 53% of people are playing Steele. I don't think it's going to be that.
Right? No, incrementally though, he'll get a bump.
Right. Yes. Right. I think the clear pitching combination right now is Castillo-Steele. I think that is going to be the most owned combination, but it may not get egregiously owned because you have all these other pitchers that are worth playing. So, I wouldn't I wouldn't be making a group in lineup HQ that says, max 1 of Castillo-Steele. It's not getting to that point of ownership. But on the Brewers side, I wasn't interested even with Yelich in the lineup. How could I even be? No. If they're the top stack, then I just lose today, right? And I even think the Cubs against Joe Ross, I really don't want to play the Cubs today either, right? I have no problem playing anyone against Joe Ross, but I put him in the Genie team. I mean, maybe you could put him in CompuServe if you want, but I mean, the bat projects them pretty damn low. They may even be a little over-owned. I mean, the Cubs today don't project that much higher than like the Angels, and they're the bottom team. So like the Cubs are hanging out on Genie on the text-based forum service.
Their lineup just came out. Horner, Bush, Suzuki, Happ, Morel, Swanson, Tachman, Nito, and Mastrobuoni. That is your Chicago lineup. Unreleased Lo-Fi Music says, hey, fellas, super quick pitcher rundown. Okay, 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. We're going to have Squirrel and Dave do that. But here, you want the super, super quick rundown? Pick 2 of Nola, Brown, Castillo, Steele, Pivetta. If you don't have a salary, you're desperate for salary, the best punt is going to be Canning.
Griffin Canning.
Yeah, and if a player in the middle will be Montas. But TJ's saying Sears over Canning, and I do not disagree with that. I think that's probably the more interesting route when it comes to like game theory and all that kind of stuff, because I think Sears is probably better than Canning. Of course, the matchup a little bit trickier. Okay. Next game is it's a game in Boston, right? Yeah, game in Boston. No, in Colorado. It's Boston at Colorado. It's over a 6 total. Pivetta taking on Cal Quantrill. Where do you have the Boston Red Sox and the Colorado Rockies? Are you just going to say Boston in AOL because they're the clear and obvious best team, or are you going to throw some game theory? You tell me.
I think Boston should be the most owned team. They have by far the highest projected team. But in a slate like this, I don't see many people going elsewhere. So I think the Red Sox are actually going to be a bit over-owned, right? Remember, like I said yesterday, the Red Sox could be the highest owned team and still be good leverage because they should be higher owned, right? So if I told you that the Red Sox were going to be 12% owned and be the highest owned team, I'd be playing the Red Sox in God knows how many lineups, right? Right, 12% owned as a stack, they'd be in America Online. But if they're going to be like 24% owned, when they really should only be like 20% owned, then they're a little over-owned. So like, right, it has nothing to do with how chalky they are. It's in comparison to what they should be. So I'm digging the Red Sox for being too owned. But obviously they're still in the B tier. So if you want, as long as you're not as long as you're not playing like total chalk around them, I think the Red Sox are fine. And then the Rockies, on the other hand, I think they're going to be under-owned because people aren't going to want to. I think a lot of people want to play Pivetta today. And
They
Pivetta,
should.
I mean, from a strikeout perspective, yes. But you're playing in cores. The outfield's big. Pivetta gives up fly balls and hard hits. I can't put him in the top tier because the Rockies are just that bad. But in the second, I have no problem playing the Rockies today. The more Pivetta is owned, the more I want to play the Rockies. But I just understand that Pivetta comes out in 5 innings, 9 strikeouts. Like it's GPPs, people. Why do I always have to say these things? Like you're aiming for first place here. You're not aiming for what's the most probable. The most probable.
I want a mid-cash blender.
Right? Yeah. Who plays DFS for 1.5x min cashes? Like you don't play for that, right? So you got to take chances some places. So like I take a look at this. It's like I'd much rather play the Rockies than the Red Sox today, just for the disparity in ownership.
So Devers hurt himself yesterday, diving for a ball. He hurt his shoulder, but it appears he's going to be fine. His manager said that he should be ready for Wednesday's the series finale. Now that may change. We'll see. Just again, that lineup's not officially out. I wouldn't be shocked if Devers takes a seat day game after a night game, hurting his shoulder the previous evening. Just again, always be on top of lineups. Understand that it's possible Devers isn't playing. It's possible a lot of the players you're putting in as far as these late games because these games don't start until 3 and change. So 3.5 hours away. Just got to be aware of such things. 2 more games, I believe we have here, Blender. I want to say it's 2 more. Let's see. After Boston and Colorado, it's Houston, Oakland, 8.5 total in Oakland. Hunter Brown taking on JP Sears. The red hot Oakland Athletics, one of the best hitters in baseball, Brent Rooker. Hunter Brown's also been spectacular too after scuffling to start the season. Where do you have the Astros and the Athletics?
Well, I mean, I'm into playing the A's when they're cheap in a good matchup, right? I don't think today is that. I mean, they don't make the bottom tier, but I mean, they're a team where I think they're viable to play in large field contests. If you're not crazy, I won't be doing it, right? So I'm putting it in this order because I put it in so just so that the word says cats because it looks better. So they did cat CTA or CTAs, call to actions or whatever. So yeah, if you want to play the A's today, God bless you. That's fine. You're not nuts, but you're kind of a little bit nuts. I don't think Hunter Brown is going to be owned enough that the leverage is worth just playing the A's. And I think the Astros may be slightly over-owned against JP Sears. I don't mind the Astros, right? I don't mind picking on JP Sears, but I mean, JP Sears is not like the total gas can or anything like that. Like if you were to play JP Sears instead of Griffin Canning, I don't think you're nuts. I'm not doing it, but I don't think you're nuts. So TJ doing, Sears over Canning, I don't think he's nuts.
He's better than Canning. He's a better pitcher than Canning.
In real life, yes, he's a better pitcher than
the
Canning.
Matchup is the matchup argument.
Right, we're not saying that much, but the one's better than the other. I don't think JP Sears is that great of a pitcher either. But that Astros lineup, I mean, they're in Oakland, so like you get a ding for the ballpark. So like Astros are just above the people that are like you're not nuts, but I'm not going to do it. At least the Astros, if I made 3 lineups today, I would consider making an Astros stack.
All right, last game, the hammer. That is the Angels and the Mariners, 7.5 total. Luis Castillo taking on Griffin Canning, the aforementioned Griffin Canning. We've mentioned several times as far as Seattle's lineup being weakened. Normally it's not good. Now it's even worse than normal because there's no Crawford and there's no J-Rod. Several creative players. Where do you have the Mariners and the Angels?
Okay, well, this is the leverage game of the slate. So, like, neither of these teams are in Prodigy because I think Castillo. I mean, now with Yelich being out for the Brewers, that may actually ding some of Castillo's ownership. So I'm putting the Angels in Prodigy. I just they project so much lower than like every other team on this slate. I mean, the disparity, but like the Angels have like a projection that's almost half of the Red Sox. Right? So like And I think if you told me Castillo was going to be 45% owned, I would say, okay, the Angels are at least in the genie tier of like any team stack against a 45% owned pitcher is going to be viable in large field, because if they get blown up, you win it all. There you're done. But I don't think the ownership is going to get that absurd, because I think Steele is going to start picking up steam and taking some of it. And then you also got Brown and Nola and Pivetta there also. And then on the other side of the game, the Mariners and the creative players, I'm not sure if I do it, but feel free to stack the creative players, because Dean,
if you're running 150, you definitely do it. Like if you're not running 150,
even if you're not running 150, like
Yeah.
if I went into a courtroom, right? If I went into a courtroom, I think I said this. I think I did this bit yesterday. You go into a courtroom and you're in front of the 12 people of the jury, and you're like, I need to make a case for a Seattle Mariners stack. And then, of course, the prosecutor or whoever, the cross-examination would be like, but no J.P. Crawford, but no Julio Rodriguez. And then, you know who comes through the door as my lead witness? Griffin Canning. Just like walks through the door, and the jury just says, yeah, we get it. Okay, you could play the Seattle
defense
Mariners.
arrests.
Right,
Yeah.
good. Griffin Canning, and then he comes with a tag, and you see like ownership. It's like 36.8%. I don't think it'll be that high, but like Griffin Canning at cheap nonsense ownership. Am I gonna do it today? No, but if I was making 20 lineups, I would have at least one. At least one Seattle stack. And even if you had three, like if you want to play Griffin Canning in one lineup and 5 Mariners in another lineup, I don't think you're nuts. So if I don't think you're nuts, you can't go in the bottom tier. So I put you in the 4th tier.
You just reminded me that the finale for Presume Innocent on Apple is today. So thank you for doing that. You probably haven't been watching that. I don't know if anybody watches Apple TV. There's some good shows on there, but I feel like nobody. I saw a note on Twitter, so it must be true, that downloads or views on Apple one day of Netflix is equal to 1 month of Apple. So it's obviously
they need to license their shows to other streamers so badly, because they don't market any of their shows. They have such a limited quantity, but the quality is absolutely incredible. They need to get their shows in front of more eyes.
Yeah. I thought it was weird when like HBO was doing that. Like I see HBO shows popping up on Netflix. Like, well, that's weird. Well, I guess we've gotten to that point of streaming. But yeah, that's a good point by TJ. And like, yeah, they were basically talking about how they're burning too much money and not getting enough eyeballs, and maybe they'll figure it out. But there's definitely Ted Lasso's over too. There's going to be like a spinoff coming for Ted Lasso. They kind of, spoiler alert, kind of teased one at the end of Ted Lasso, which I think might be happening. We'll see. Stay tuned. All right, Crunchdown will be coming in
Season 2
shortly.
of Shrinking is almost out.
Yeah, that's it. Wait, Shrinking is
Same writers as Ted Lasso, other than Sudeikis, and it's starring like Harrison Ford, Jason Segel.
That's a fun show. That's good.
It's
That's
really
very good. Yeah, that's very good. I enjoyed that show. Like, yeah, Apple does have some stuff. Is there one Apple show, Bunder? Do you have Apple access? Do you care for such things?
Yeah, but I watched Ted Lasso, and that's it.
Yeah,
I have Severance on my queue, because you recommended Severance a while back.
a lot of people have.
Like, yeah, but I have so much stuff. I mean, I've that. I still have not watched Dark on Netflix. I still have not watched
German
Ozark,
show, I believe.
Right. Yeah, Dark is German, right? I still haven't watched Ozark, right? I still haven't watched
You gotta watch
season.
Ozark.
I'm waiting for the second half of You to come out to finish that.
Yeah, it's a relationship Dexter is what You is.
Right. And I still haven't watched season 3 of The Bear. So it's like
I'm in the middle of that.
To these things? Right.
There's too much. There's too much good stuff. There's too many good things. I just saw a note that Roth had an issue with his internet. Maybe he'll be on shortly. TJ, I assume you saw that as well.
You know what Roth should do, Dean?
What's that?
Should use his landline and call into one of these services, and maybe he could connect.
Hello, Prodigy.
I'm waiting for Cheese to tell us which service that he was on even before these came out.
Well, here he is. He just popped in. Maybe Cheese can tell us. I don't know if he can hear us now or yeah, I assume that's what TJ's doing, the seamless segue. But so yeah, what was your internet provider of choice back in the day, Dave? Do you have one you were a big fan of? I don't know if you see that. That's our board today, the Blender made the board as far as the rankings.
Okay. I mean, originally my first service ever was AOL. You know, same as everybody. That was the only one I heard of. I didn't even know what the internet was, and I'd heard of it. So like, I didn't even know that there were other options. And then I think I went to Nology for a while.
Nology,
you remember that?
No. Net Zero is one that's not on the board that I think our family used.
Those are ISPs. Those weren't online start like dude, Earthlink. Those were national ISPs, but you could have a local ISP. I mean, those were just numbers to call in, and then you connected to the internet. So those technically aren't like services.
Getting all technical.
My mom definitely still has AOL email, so if you want to get in touch with her, it's going to be something at AOL.com.
Is she still paying the $10, $15 a month? Because I hear some people still are paying. I hope she's not.
She absolutely is. My brother and I, every time I'm out there, we're like, there are a lot of things you can do here. It's like, oh, I'm quite happy with it. So, good,
That's amazing.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's working for her, I suppose. Roth was going to have no internet there for a second, but he made a hell of a comeback here. By the way, shout out to Kevin. Kevin, you made that call yesterday on Atlanta, pretty strong call for the Braves. Got me away from Chris Sale. Did not save my lineups. You didn't tell me just at the lock button on Tyler O'Neill. Why didn't you tell me that, Roth?
Well, obviously, I thought that was a given.
How was your Wednesday afternoon working out for you? I guess you're a little panicked a few seconds ago, but I guess we're good now internet wise.
Yeah, I was just sitting here, everything was good, and then the power flashed and I lost internet, and I was kind of worried it wasn't going to come back. But we're back, we're good, and now I get to, enjoy. I get to gloat a little bit. I smashed. I got both games right yesterday, and now I get to just enjoy the victory lap.
How was date night last night?
It was pretty embarrassing. We went to dinner at 7. Thought it would be cool and trendy. It was really old, and we were done by 8. We're like, do we go home? Does date night end at 8? We went to a bar and killed time for another 30 minutes, but it was pretty embarrassing, honestly.
Well, gave it the old college try.
Yeah.
Blender, anything else before you? Anything else, Blender, before you step aside and get out of here, make way for crunch time?
No, I think it would be interesting on crunch time if Dave and John went over the Seattle Mariners lineup and made up one player's name that was actually not real, and see if he could tell the difference between the Mariners lineup and the fake players.
It's there are definitely some creative players on the Mariners these days. No official lineup just yet, but the projected lineup is quite goofy for sure. But you guys, we have 40 minutes, 35 minutes until first pitch. Plenty of time for this small slate. Of course, we'll be back later if you guys are not aware. There is a later slate, 5 o'clock. I think 6:40 is first pitch. I think Squirrel. I think you're on with me for the early part. Here you got the crunch time. You got GrindersLive later today. Is that correct? I feel like that's what I saw.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what time. 5?
I think it's 5. I'm pretty sure it's 5, and it's just a little bit shortened, 5 to 6 crunch time, and then crunch time taking all the way up to the first pitch. But we care about not just today and today only, but the slate that's happening right now, and that one only. We'll talk about the one later. It is crunch time. You got Dave Potts, you got SquirrelPatrol, and Kevin Roth, who's 2-0 in his weather calls. Probably a bigger streak if we're extending back. But all right, we're gonna step aside, get out of here. Roth, take it away.
Good stuff. As always, welcome to it, ladies and gents. You know the drill. It is crunch time. And yes, 2 nights ago, I also had an awesome call in a late start. I don't remember where it was. Minnesota. Yeah, I'm hot, baby. I'm hot. But anytime I feel this way, I tend to blow a forecast massively, and that could happen today. So stay tuned, friends. Two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got SquirrelPatrol in the house. What up, man?
Yeah, not much. I got a early morning slate here, or early afternoon, I guess. Yeah, should be a good time.
Yeah, it is.
This counts as early morning for sure.
Yeah, this is early morning. Our guy Keith Eister, the Iceman, he might still be awake from last night. Like, this is so early that it might still be last night in West Coast time. We got Dave Potts, CheeseIsGood in the house as well. What up, Cheese?
Not too much. Yeah, early start, busy day. But before any of that, I just want to know. I haven't seen Squirrel in a while. Have you watched any Smurfs since I've last seen you? I feel
No.
like I don't know if you were part of that. Like Squirrel was just disrespecting the Smurfs, and I feel like he simply hasn't watched
Just a
enough.
quick
So
note.
I'm
Did I
gonna
time
send
that?
you some specific episodes to watch if we could just get you on that.
I don't think it was the Smurfs. I think it was Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Well, you had those as the bottom too.
Yeah.
But see, I decided, and I'm giving you the full pass on Alvin and the Chipmunks because of the Squirrel Chipmunk rivalry. I think I was not thinking about that angle, and that is fair.
Yeah.
I like the Smurfs. I just thought that it's weird there's only one girl. And that opens up a whole bunch of weird storylines. So yeah.
He's got a point, Cheese.
Storylines were weird.
Yeah,
They were glorious and fantastic and genius. Yeah, I think it's just fascinating and fantastic if you really think about that. There's only one girl and one old guy.
Yeah,
and
everyone
else is a middle-aged male.
Yeah,
it's all very very fantastic. Anyhow, carry on.
Hey, Cheese, we should note Reynolds has been scratched. Dean pointing out that's kind of a big deal if you're doing a Pittsburgh stack.
It is, and even without a Pittsburgh stack, he was one of my favorite random one-offs.
Not anymore.
So yeah, I had to change a bunch of lineups moments ago.
Okay, well, make sure that you too are changing your lineups if you have any Reynolds. Cheese, I got to give you a shout out because yesterday when I was like, I don't think you play this guy, the reaction from hosts is generally like, oh, that sucks, or I don't like that. But your reaction was, and I quote, I love it. That's what you said. You said, I love it. That's great. And you meant it. You're psychotic, and I love that.
It all worked out perfectly. Like, there are certain things that I know that I don't know, and I know that someone else knows better than me. You know weather better than I do. I'm going to go with your take. It's not going to be right 100% of the time, just like I'm not going to be right 100% of the time on saying I like this pitcher. But I'll take the guy who knows what he's talking about over me every day. I ended up going full fade on sale. I had 0% anything in that game, all because you said that so clearly, and rock and roll.
Yeah, love it. All right, well, we find ourselves in another weather situation today, and it's starting a little earlier than I thought. In Atlanta, we have a chance for a delay, and that's it. I almost assume that there's a pitcher that we want there simply because there's not a whole lot of games. So, Cheese, who's the pitcher and or pitchers that we want in Atlanta?
Barely. Like they're bottom of the list. Like they're in the mix because of the size of the slate, like you say, but these are not priority pitchers at all.
Yeah. Either way, I think you play them. And there's a handful of other games that find themselves in a similar spot with a chance for a delay. And there's not a single game where I think that delay likelihood is high enough that you should fade hitters, pitchers, anything. I think you just play the way you were going to play as if there won't be any rain issues and know that the odds are in your favor for that, but also know that there's a 10 or 20% chance that you do get a pop-up shower and a delay. That's pretty much where I stand. And that's with like literally every game on the slate, you have a low chance of a delay. Atlanta probably the highest of that. And that's it. So let's punt out of weather and into content. And Cheese, you can lead us off with some pitcher talk.
Yeah, it's a super interesting slate. We have basically 5 aces and then a huge gap and then a bunch of stuff. But like I'm super glad that Squirrel is on the show because there's nobody really, and I mean this for real, like there's nobody anywhere in the industry whose opinion I would care about hearing more than Squirrel's on Griffin Canning. Because Squirrel, I know, along with me and most people, like it's all about cheap pitchers this year. TJ, you're second. And like all I want to do is play cheap pitchers, and all I want to do is play pitchers against the Mariners. We got a cheap pitcher against the Mariners. He projects well. He used to be good, and yet this guy is the worst. Like he's one of the worst pitchers in the league this year, and I'm going out of my way to stack against him every time. But this is the one, like, it's killing me. And like, I will talk about these top 5 pitchers but first, I want to throw it to Squirrel, and I want you to tell me, are you playing like over the field Griffin Canning?
Real quick, because Cheese, I know you hand build and it might take a while to swap things out. There's no Tyler O'Neill today.
Thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, I got Griffin Canning tagged there. I forget what I said, but I think I said something along the lines of maybe you could make an argument I'm taking right-handers against Seattle too far by playing Griffin Canning. But with Julio Rodriguez and JP Crawford out of the lineup, maybe I'm not taking it far enough. I like it. I love Griffin Canning today. He's only 5,700. I do think he's a much better play on DraftKings and FanDuel, but I'm still playing him on FanDuel as well in some lineups. I mean, I don't know who's in the Seattle lineup. Like Cal Riley, I guess, probably is in the Seattle lineup. Other than that, I didn't like who am I worried about in the Seattle lineup. And I think a lot of it comes down to ballpark as well. Like it's in Seattle, so it's like that's a great pitcher's park. Like if Griffin Canning can't do well today, then like when can he do well? And
well never.
Yeah.
So
maybe.
So we're showing him at around 20-ish% on DK. Are you over that?
Yes.
Okay.
That was
and
like
the fact that you said that you're playing him on FanDuel is an even bigger telling that you do in fact like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just what I was wondering. Like, I have 0, and I don't think that's the right call. Like, and I also don't have as many lineups today because of the early start as I usually would. If I was up to my 40 lineups, I would have some Canning. But like, it's one of those, I wouldn't like, I don't think you're crazy to have Canning as your highest owned pitcher because Seattle is so truly bad. They're the worst.
Yeah. William in the chat says, I've never won anything playing Canning, not even my money back.
Right.
But you're telling me
essentially because he's terrible.
Right. But if he has a pulse, this is the spot. Like if he is alive, this is the time.
He has not been bad in every game this year. He has like a 1 earned run in 7 innings against Oakland about a month ago. And he had 1 earned run against Seattle in 6 2/3 innings in early June. and so it's the same exact situation going up against Luis Castillo. The Mariners still have a implied run total under 4 runs. And a lot of this is ballpark. If you put this game in Anaheim, maybe it's like just too risky. And if you put Julio Rodriguez back in the lineup, I don't know. There's some risk there. I don't know. I think this is a good spot for Griffin Canning. But I also, if you say you want to, like, I'm going to be playing some Mariners stacks as well. So that's like, it's possible he's just terrible. He just gets blown up. But if he's going to do it ever, this is the spot.
Yeah.
So back to the overarching thing. Officially, it's like, I don't think there's a clear right answer here. It's a terrible pitcher against a terrible, probably even worse team, and he's cheap. So I think you can go either way, and you're okay. I have 0 Canning. But if he's your highest owned pitcher, I don't think you're doing it wrong either, because I would be viable at 5,700 against Seattle.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's 5 good pitchers apparently.
Yeah. So here's the thing: if you're not playing a high-end Red Sox or Phillies stack, you don't really need the salary. And we have Luis Castillo, Aaron Nola, Justin Steele, Hunter Brown, Nick Pivetta. All pretty reachable. Like Nola's 10K on DraftKings. The other guys are around 9, with Pivetta a little cheaper. Nola's the only one at 10K on FanDuel. I can tell you, again, I don't have quite my usual number of lineups. I think I've got 15-ish. 100% of my pitchers on both sites are from those 5, and that's it. Which means I don't have, the straight 1 through 5 Phillies or Red Sox. Although it's a little more reachable with O'Neill out, but still it would be pushing it. I just think the other reason I don't love the Canning thing is, while Canning may only be like 20% owned overall, he'll be like 50+% owned with Red Sox stacks. Like you're kind of losing your ownership edge if that's what you're doing. If you're doing Canning with the Red Sox, well, that's what every Red Sox stack has. So I don't love that. I would rather play Canning with like Philly stacks or Brave stacks, like the other kind of random expensive stuff.
Yeah.
And I would be curious, again, Squirrel's opinion, if you're leaning more that way. But before I ask him that, out of those top 5, if you don't care about ownership, I would go Castillo first. But I don't like him enough better than the other guys, and I think he's kind of probably too chalky. We're showing fairly close ownership between all these guys, but I think that Castillo kind of pops up a little too high. So I have Justin Steele as my top guy, followed by Nick Pivetta, followed by Castillo, Hunter Brown, and then Nola. And that's my entire pool.
Okay. Good enough for me. Squirrel, we know that you have Canning, who Cheese does not have. What are you doing up at the top with the, the 5 aces-ish?
So I do like Luis Castillo, I think, as the top spend up option at pitcher. I'll probably be under like 40%, but probably not too far under. Like, I think he is the guy that's in the best spot overall. Like, he's in the same ballpark as Canning. It's just he's a better pitcher.
Right.
I think the matchup against the Angels is like a little lower upside because they don't strike out as much. But he's still, I think, in the best spot. Actually, I think after Castillo, I like Justin Steele and then Hunter Brown. I actually kind of like the idea of playing a Rockies stack against Nick Pivetta today, which is a little bit risky, but I think it's, I think like the Rockies are going to go under it. So yeah, I like Castillo. I think then like Hunter Brown, Justin Steele, about the same amount. And then I like Griffin Canning. I've got like Pivetta and Nola a little bit beneath them, and then Montas and like anybody else probably below that mark.
Who is in Chicago? Because weather-wise, we got the winds blowing out at Wrigley. Blowing in at Wrigley.
That's Justin Steele, which is part of why he's at the top of my list.
Gotcha. Okay. I approve of that choice, just simply weather-wise. And if he's in the mix, then he would get my vote if he's up there. Squirrel, any other thoughts at pitcher?
Yeah, I think the Milwaukee pitching situation is a little bit up in the air. So like the other side of that game, like you want Justin Steele because of the weather. Milwaukee is I think starting Joe Ross, or there might be an opener and then Joe Ross. But like Ross probably isn't going to pitch a whole lot either way. It might essentially be a bullpen game because Ross is returning from injury.
Yeah, okay. And like the Joe Ross thing has become much shakier. Like I'm not even sure that he's pitching anymore. Initially, like he was definitely the guy. Now it's like I'm not even confident that he comes in. So I wouldn't do that personally.
Okay, Shannon says, is it confirmed that this Fiesta guy is pitching for the Twins because he's been off for the last few games? Fiesta? Is he pitching for the Twins?
David Festa is supposedly like almost certainly the bulk reliever. It's always like anytime the guy is not actually starting the game, there's always some chance that they can change their mind. But yes, there's as confirmed can be about a bulk reliever that it's David Festa.
Okay, well then that is a good spot to start. Let's pivot. Let's talk about some of the stacks. Squirrel, are you planning on a little Fiesta against Festa here, or do you have other spots in mind?
Well, so there is a game in Coors Field, and so I think the Red Sox and the Rockies, like they have the two highest implied run totals. I think Boston might be highly owned, and I agree that like the combination of Canning and the Red Sox might end up being overdone. So I agree. Maybe don't want to like just play Canning and Red Sox stacks. I kind of like the Rockies. They've kind of been burning me all year, but I'm going to keep going with the Rockies. I think they're going to be maybe a stack that's just underowned, just because they do just have some absolute dud games on offense sometimes, and they're going up against a good pitcher. So but it's still like it's a good ballpark to hit in. It's just a spacious ballpark. Like there's nothing you can do about it. There tends to be more hits there and more runs than in other parks. I think if you're going beyond, the Coors Field game, and I'll add one additional piece of the Coors Field thing, and especially because of the Rockies. The Rockies lineup, I think, is not out yet, and I still think that makes a little bit of an impact in afternoon slates in particular. Like the late teams that don't have their lineups in yet tend to go a little bit less owned than they should be. After the Coors Field game, I like the Pirates and the Astros. Astros, another team that don't have their lineup out yet. And then St. Louis, like I'm probably going to be under the field on Cardinals stacks, but they do have some hitters that are in good spots. They have like Wilson Contreras and Paul Goldschmidt that can hit. Like the Pirates have like a contact lefty, Martin Perez, Martin Perez, pitching. And I think that's a good spot for like Contreras, for Paul Goldschmidt, maybe even Arenado. But it's weird because as good as the Cardinals have hitters that hit lefties well, the team overall hits lefties terrible.
Okay. William in the chat would be cool if you would just accidentally upload your lineups to his Google Drive, Squirrel. He would appreciate that.
Yeah. They're still in progress. So we'll.
Yeah. Okay. Once he's done,
Yeah.
we'll make that happen. Cheese, let's talk about, I guess, Coors, but also we always like Coors. It's like 94 degrees or something. I like Coors even more than I normally like Coors because of the weather. Is that where you're going, or are you trying to get a little different?
I'm well under on Coors. I'll definitely back up what Squirrel said. Like, I'm playing a lot of Nick Pivetta, but like the Rockies do have upside. If Pivetta is even slightly off, like the one thing he does is allow power. And that's the one thing the Rockies actually do have. If they're not striking out, they have some power. So I don't mind that as a stack. And I'll also second what he said about.
Sorry. I was just saying, it's the one thing you don't want to have is your issue in Coors Field.
Yeah. There are 5 lineups that we don't have yet and probably won't have at lock. I mean, maybe one comes in, but they do go under-owned. And I think definitely the Rockies are interesting. Houston is very interesting. I think you can keep playing Oakland even against a better pitcher. They're not this good, but they're fully legit power, like up and down that lineup. So I think they're viable. And I have a ton of Mariners, which is like nonsense versus nonsense. Something has to happen. I mean, it doesn't. It'll probably be 5-3, and no, neither side wins. But I do have Mariners. The Braves Reds game interests me more for just a few bats here and there with mini stacking. I love Ellie De La Cruz and Candelario on the red side. Nacho Alvarez is very useful for salary, even if he doesn't do anything. And he should be a guy who can get on base. So I think he's not just a punt where you're fine with a 0. Like, he probably gets something. And I kind of like Kelnick for his price as well. Other than that, I do have more Phillies than Red Sox, but really I don't have a ton of either of those super expensive teams because, like I said, I'm only playing the expensive pitchers, which is why I'm playing Seattle. That's also why I like the Cardinals, kind of as Squirrel was pointing out. And yeah, the Pirates get a big downgrade without Reynolds, but they're also really pretty easy to fit. So they're on my list as well.
Yeah. Okay. Gentlemen, we have roughly 17 minutes, I do believe, until first pitch. I'm not seeing any immediate weather concerns. So with that, we go around the horn. We talk position by position. Cheese, what do you like at catcher?
2 of my favorite plays on the whole slate are catchers, Wilson Contreras and Cal Raleigh.
Yes.
They're both just like, Seattle is terrible except for Cal Raleigh. Like, just, you don't have to be stacking Seattle to just play the one guy. And then Wilson Contreras is the best Cardinals bat against lefties. These guys aren't good because they're catchers. They're good because they're good. If you don't have salary, and I'm kind of prioritizing spending a catcher, honestly, with those guys, but it's fine to play, Reese McGuire. You can play Pedro Pages. I'm assuming he goes Pages instead of Paez. 2,300. Garrett Stubbs is fine. Sean Murphy's fine. Yainer Diaz is fine. Like, I don't mind the cheaper stuff. I just really love Contreras and Raleigh.
Cheese, can you play Canning and Cal to get a little different, and then you spend up with your
like, you don't need some kind of shutout from Canning. He's 5,700. You can give up 2 home runs and be fine at that salary.
Both to the big dumper, probably from both sides of the plate. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense, I guess. Anyways, Squirrel, what are you doing to catcher?
Yeah, actually, I kind of concur that Contreras and Cal Riley stick out amongst the rest. Then after that, I think it's probably Yainer Diaz or Elias Diaz. But I would play Wilson Contreras or Cal Riley on their own. Everybody else would probably just be in a stack.
Okay, that sounds good. How about first base?
First base, I think Bryce Harper, Paul Goldschmidt, Matt Olson. I think if you're trying to save money, probably Tyler Locklear or Miss Diaz.
Cheese, your thoughts are first?
It's kind of just okay up top. I mean, Bryce Harper is a very good play, but obviously expensive. I do like Matt Olson and Paul Goldschmidt in the mid-tier, but I have more Candelario. He's the guy I kind of like in a mini stack with Ellie. Dominic Smith is a little too cheap. I don't think you have to be full stacking the Red Sox to play a couple bats here and there. So I am playing some Dominic Smith on his own. And yeah, those cheap guys Squirrel mentioned are fine, along with Luke Raley and Michael Bush, kind of mid-tierish. But overall, it's not a super great position. So I don't really care about spending up. I'm playing mostly Candelario, Smith, and Goldschmidt, kind of mid-tierish.
Quick question from Jim. I think maybe this goes back to catcher. He says, what about Stevenson? I don't know what position Stevenson is.
Yeah, he's a catcher. Yeah, like he's right there in that mid, like where we mentioned Yanner Diaz and Sean Murphy. Like he's fine. Yeah. In theory, it's super small sample size for this Braves rookie. Winans, he pitched a little last year. He does, in what we've seen, has been a very good ground ball pitcher to righties and pretty good overall to righties. So I don't love picking out righties individually against him. That's why I didn't mention Stevenson.
Okay, good stuff. Second base, Cheese, what do you got?
So I guess, I don't know. I want to say David Hamilton's the chalk, but he's pretty expensive. So maybe he's not. And we do have Romy Gonzalez for Boston now. And because he's in the starting lineup, righty against righty, I guess he doesn't probably have his usual pinch hit risk. So he's fine. But outside of a Red Sox stack, those aren't the Boston bats that I love. I would rather play Bryson Stott or Nick Gonzalez as mid-tier plays, or I would save with Jorge Polanco or all the way down to Alvarez.
Squirrel, your thoughts at second?
Yeah, so I had David Hamilton tagged, and I actually don't know if that's a good idea anymore because he's hitting 8th in the lineup. I think usually versus righties, he's hitting second. He still is. I mean, he's a decent play, good hitter, but like at 5,200, hitting 8th. I don't like him as much. I think the second baseman that I do like, Jose Altuve, I think is the best. Romy Gonzalez is 4,000. He's hitting 6th. He's a little bit of a better spot in Coors Field. I think Jonathan India leading off for the Reds, and I think then the big value play is Nacho Alvarez. But if you want to get a little bit different, like if you think Griffin Canning is going to get like roughed up, like Jorge Polanco is only 3,300 and will probably be hitting cleanup for the Mariners.
How much Alvarez do you have? I mean, do you have a lot, or is he Nacho Alvarez?
Yeah.
Let me see. I will probably be a little bit under the field. But I think he's a decent one-off if you just want to spend 2,000 a second.
Okay, not Nacho Alvarez. Third base, right? We're third. Squirrel.
Oh, third base. Yes. So yeah, I think Rafi Devers is the top play. But he's really pretty expensive. Nolan Arenado is probably like a better point per dollar play at 4,000. And then Nacho Alvarez also third base eligible. And then if you don't want to go the Nacho Alvarez route, probably like Milvali Marte for the Reds.
Okay. Cheese, your thoughts at third.
Yeah, Devers kind of tier of his own and worth the spend. I don't think you have to have him in a stack. You can just play him on his own. I also like spending up on Alec Boehm to be a little different. Then we got the old men in okay matchups with Bregman and Arenado. Like both of them are fine, but I prefer them just in stacks. I would rather either get up to Devers or just save money. Like with Alvarez, mostly on DraftKings. Josh Rojas is on my list. That's really it. It's not a super deep position today. On FanDuel, you can play Candelario at third, which I think I prefer doing that there, but that's not an option on DK.
Okay. We get to go to shortstop. I know you like some plays there, Cheese.
I do. We only have one of the sort of usual big guys. The others will be coming on later tonight. But so Ellie is my favorite play here. And I think because we have the Coors bats, like all the Red Sox bats to spend on, as well as the Phillies, I think he's the stud that gets pushed down in ownership, making him my favorite on the slate. Like I would rather play him than Devers or Schwarber and Harper and those guys. Just because I think there's a pretty big gap after him. Tovar is quite playable. Rafael is quite playable. Trey Turner will also probably be a little bit of a spend up to be different if you want to do that. You can kind of say the same thing for O'Neal Cruz, lefty, although I don't love him outside of stacks. Mason Wynn and Jeremy Pena, they're not old men, but they remind me of Bregman and Arenado at third. Like these guys are fine. But I much prefer them in their stacks. Like they're not cheap, they're not expensive, they're just kind of there. And it's one of those slates where there's few enough options that if you can't spend up, you might land on one of them just because. Mm-hmm. But I don't see any reason to like go out of your way to try to get them. Like if you can just spend a little more and get Tovar or Rafael, I would do that.
Okay. Squirrel, your thoughts are short.
Yeah, I probably like Ezekiel Tovar the best, just because I think he's got upside, and I don't think he's going to be very highly owned, and the lineup's not out yet. So I think people, will be a little bit reluctant to play him. Like even if they have the salary, they might just go for like a different option, like a Willie Adonis or something. Just because we know he's in the lineup. There's like going to be a green check or whatever. So I like Tovar the best, but then I think Ellie De La Cruz, if you have the salaries, is also a very good option. And then O'Neal Cruz, is a little bit cheaper, but probably a little bit less good. But if you're at 5,000, I think that's a good spot to go for shortstop. If you're really trying to save money, probably Ledmus Diaz again at only 2,000.
Okay. You get the honor of bringing us to the outfield, Squirrel. What are your favorite plays there?
Sure. So I think Jarren Duran leading off in Coors Field, that's the best spot you can be in. Is in terms of plate appearances and hitters ballpark is leading off in Coors Field on the road team. Marcell Ozuna probably going to be a little bit under owned, but he's still in a good spot. Let's see. After that, probably Yordan Alvarez, Wilyer Abreu. Actually, for the Red Sox, is probably going to be a little bit under owned. He's sitting second in Coors Field, which is also a very good spot to be. And I think that's a little bit higher in the lineup than maybe we were projecting earlier in the day. If you're trying to save money, Victor Robles is a good play. It's especially if you think it's going to be the other side of the Griffin Canning versus Mariners matchup, or if you want somebody with some upside, maybe Adam Duvall or maybe Jake Myers.
Cheese, you got some outfielders for me?
Yeah, very similar list of names to what Squirrel said. Definitely Duran is my favorite if you have money, and Wilyer Abreu is my favorite in the mid-tier. And again, kind of like with all the other Red Sox I've mentioned, I very rarely have all these guys paired together, because of salary, but also because of ownership. I do like Kelnick and McCutchen in the mid-tier as well. Also with Myers and Duvall. On the cheap end, Robles is on the very cheap end. You can throw Dylan Carlson in there on DK as well. I've got a little Jake Fraley and Will Benson. Some Lawrence Butler, of course, greatest hitter of all time, apparently. Brandon Marsh. And you can also do like Schwarber, Alvarez, Ozuna are all a little bit of spend up to be different. I mean, I think Schwarber gets more ownership than we're showing. But still not probably enough.
Okay. Guys, we got about 5 minutes until lock. You know what the people want? They want the bombs. They want some home run calls. Cheese, you can lead us off with that.
All right. Cal Raleigh.
Yeah.
It's an easy one.
Yeah.
Wilyer Abreu. And let's go with a little Nick Gonzalez.
Okay. Squirrel, you got a few names?
Sure. I'll go Kyle Schwarber, Wilson Contreras, and I'll go Marcell Ozuna.
Okay. We got 4 or 5 minutes for some QQs, and we should note I did not do my promo read. That's a good way to get fired. You got to do your promo read here. Never been a better time to sign up for RG Premium. We got NFL preseason coming up. I think it's like a week away. Squirrel, does that sound right to you?
I don't know. Hall of Fame game?
They usually have that game like first week of August, if not before.
Yeah, I think we're literally a week out from NFL, which is absolutely insane. We got good stuff. Whatever you're looking for, whatever sport you're looking for, whatever price level you want. 6-month combo subscription, exclusive price, $469.99. That's a savings of $250 as opposed to buying 6 individual months of combo premium. You can also get your first month of RG Premium for $40 off for a limited time. And if you just want to test run, dip your toes in the water, 3-day pass is $19.99. Went out on a date with my wife. It was $19.99. That was the cost of that. But either way, it's a great deal. It's a great deal. You can't beat it. It's good stuff. Oh, and they want a Roth dong pick. Well, that's easy because it's Cal Raleigh. I'm on board with the big dumper. He's going yard against Griffin Canning for sure. Lock it in. We got 4 minutes until lock. What do we got? Lone Wolf says, "Did you get my shout out, Roth?" I don't know. I got a lot of shout outs. I may have missed that one specifically, but thank you. I appreciate it. If you got any questions about lunch, here we go. Or baseball. Baseball works. Brian Marshall says, "Cheese, DKGPP, Yoshida versus Myers. Last piece." I missed you. Were you muted? Yeah.
Myers.
Okay. Did you mute yourself intentionally? And then
I did. Yes.
Oh, okay, because you rarely.
Yeah, I was typing something. I didn't want to get the old Cardi keyboard.
That's kind. The old Cardi keyboard is that freaking guy. Every keystroke, he's literally attacking his computer. Jamie says, "We all want Roth's review of Twisters." It was perfectly fine. It was good. I had higher expectations going in than most, and it just fell flat for me. It was fine. You should see it if you like. Yeah, you should see it. Most people liked it more than I did, but I was hoping for like awesome. I was hoping
you're going to be pickier about that kind of movie than
exactly.
Else.
Exactly.
It's like if I go to a baseball movie, I might view it differently than my wife would view it. You know,
I think it's exactly that. Like I was hoping for a plot twist or something that I didn't see coming, and it was none of that. It was, my 4-year-old could have wrote the script, but it was still entertaining. It was fun. Watching tornadoes kill people is fun, not in real life, but in fake life. DK Cash question, Squirrel. You want Wilson Contreras and Victor Robles or Reese McGuire and Larry Butler?
I would do the first one.
Okay. Just got asked, is Atlanta starting in a delay? And I don't think so, unless something popped over the last 2 seconds.
It starts in 1 minute. So
no, I don't think so. They had literally the tiniest little. They had 2 drops of rain about 3 minutes ago, but I don't think they pulled the tarp out for that. Thoughts on TJ?
Oh, you can go. I was going to ask my own question for my own lineup. So if someone else has got it, Cal Raleigh, the big dumper.
Yes.
And
that's the answer, but feel free to finish the question.
And oh my gosh, I messed up my own 2v2. Here I am. I should have stayed behind the scenes. It was Cal Raleigh and Polanco, or you know what? I don't even remember what it is. Never mind. I'm thinking
that's the answer. Game. That's the answer.
I went with it was basically, do I do a full Seattle, like a Seattle mini stack or 3 1-offs? But I'm going with the Seattle mini stack.
It's a good choice. We all approve of the big dumper. Hey, by the way, we've hit the lock. Poor TJ popped on, just didn't have it. But he's coming back.
Kiboshed it.
It could be like 7 a.m. in Canada for all we know.
Yeah, we don't know. That's when TJ sent us the time for the show. He was like, "Oh, the show is at 11:20 or 11:40," and I was like, "Is this what Canadian time zone are we doing here?" But he was right. He was right. It was Eastern time. TJ, what time zone are you in, if you don't mind?
So we change. Saskatchewan doesn't change time zones. We just always stay the same. So I have to kind of like adjust to where everybody else is
Jesus,
for scheduling.
That sounds difficult.
But right now, I believe we're the same as like Mountain Time. It's 10:20 a.m.
So you're either Mountain Time or Central Time, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds really confusing. But also, you're doing the right thing by not changing. We're the ones in the wrong with our stupid time changes. Hey, guess what? I think we've done it. Post-to-Gen Stoner says, I thought the Braves game was risk for a delay or something earlier. Yeah. No, there's a chance for a delay in it. There's a chance for a delay in a bunch of games, but it probably won't happen in any of them. With that, we're going to bounce on out of here. For Squirrel, for Cheese, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you later on today. You have been crushed.